Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be diving into Astral Ascent. This 2D action roguelite platformer just had its full release on November 14th, and I've been playing it pretty much non-stop. The developers are Hibernian Workshop, a small indie development team from France. These guys have really poured their hearts into this game, and I think it shows quite a lot. In this review I'll break everything down for you, and at the end we will answer the question: should you buy, wait for a sale, or leave it on the shelf? There's a lot to unpack here, and I will have everything broken up into chapters, so if there's something you're after, you can easily find it. Now, without any further ado, let's get started. In Astral Ascent, you are attempting to liberate the astral prisons, which are filled with people from the conquests of the Master. Your journey consists of traversing the central prison known as the Garden, which is guarded by the 12 Zodiacs and the Master. Each of the playable characters has their own backstory and clearly defined motives for wanting to destroy the Master and end his reign of terror. As you progress through the game, you'll be able to experience each of the playable characters' story through the dialogue with the cast of NPCs in the game, all of which are voice acted. While Astral Ascent is most definitely an action roguelite first, it has taken a lot of notes from Hades and how it uses dialogue to enhance its characters. While I have to say that some of the dialogue is a bit stiff and isn't quite as well written as Hades, I have to give credit where credit is due, because while it's far from perfect, it is still done fairly well and is more than serviceable. Now let's talk about the absolute eye candy that is Astral Ascent. I mean, man, this game is gorgeous. It's one of the things that made me want to try it. We have quite a few extremely well animated cutscenes that have an anime inspired feel to them. Think JRPG style cutscenes like Tales of Vesperia, including the opening cutscene, which does a great job at setting the tone of the game. The visual effects of the spells and abilities are gorgeous, with a wide variety of different effects. There's a lot of little details in the game that are really awesome as well, like particles that move in the foreground of each of the different areas, or Zimzim's botanical garden with all of the little butterflies floating around. If there's one thing that cannot be denied about this game, it's that the art direction is a clear standout. I mean, just look at it. I do, however, want to mention that while the art is great, there are times when it lacks a bit of visual clarity. Just a lot of stuff going on, especially in the multiplayer when both people are casting abilities. It can make it a little difficult to tell what's good and what's bad. As far as audio goes, the soundtrack is really good. It flows well with the different areas in the game and really ties the whole experience together. The voice acting is good, although as I mentioned before, some of the lines aren't the best. This could be partly from lack of experience, or the fact that English likely isn't the developer's first language, since they are from France, so perhaps some of their dialogue got a bit lost in translation. Either way, there is a lot to love about the voice acting, and each of the characters have well-defined personalities and are fairly emotive. The audio cues for the actual gameplay is good overall. Each of the spells and abilities have clear audio feedback, which is very helpful considering the frantic style of combat. I do think that they could use a bit more audio feedback on when you get hit, since there isn't much of that as it stands. Moving on to the heart and soul of Astral Ascent, the gameplay and mechanics. When you first hop into the game, you will be thrown into a tutorial, which is very handy considering all of the different systems that are at play here. After completing the tutorial, you will be introduced to the hub world. This is where all of your meta progression will take place, with a variety of things to purchase from cosmetics, spells, stats, and a lot more. Once you've chatted with the NPCs, you'll take a ride on a giant magic owl and jump into your first run, and man, are you in for a treat. This game has some of the smoothest platforming mechanics I have seen in any game. The movement animations are fluid, and the controls are responsive and intuitive. Some of my favorite parts of the platforming are the jump pads that boost you up when you attack them, the portals that send you flying forward, and the ability for you to slow your descent by attacking enemies. All of this makes the platforming experience truly amazing. It's a ton of fun, and figuring out all of the little nuances during my playtime has been one of my favorite parts of the game. Honestly, I am absolutely terrible at platforming games, and because of that, I have a hard time finding enjoyment in them. But this has made me question whether I really don't like platformers, or if the platformers that I've played just weren't that good. Now, while the platforming mechanics in the game are clearly phenomenal, all of that would mean nothing if the combat was terrible, and thankfully we have quite the opposite going on here. The combat is frantic, but also requires you to be very calculated. Learning the different enemy attack patterns and boss fights requires you to pay a lot of attention. I do think that some of the attack indicators could use a bit of work, with some of them being misleading, making it feel a little cheap when you get hit the first couple of times, or even being in the heat of the moment and not realizing what is doing the attack. Each of the playable characters have a unique basic attack, with 2 melee characters and 2 ranged characters. They also each have a unique ability that can be used freely on cooldown. You have 4 spells that rotate one after the other, each of which require mana. Each character has a unique set of spells that are specifically made for them, as well as access to a pool of spells that any character can use. You use your basic attack to recharge your mana, which makes the general combat loop cast spells, while weaving in basic attacks to make sure you don't run out. I haven't unlocked all of the spells yet, and already there's a ton of variety here with something that will appeal to many different playstyles. As you play through your run, you'll find gambits, which are modifiers for spells that enhance them in various ways. On top of the spells that are available, you will also find auras, passive items that will grant you various stat boosts and can modify your spells further. I've personally found that while all of the variety is great and definitely keeps the game from getting stale, it can be a bit frustrating trying to find things that synergize well with one another, especially early on, and this can lead to that feeling of just getting unlucky. Although getting unlucky does suck, you can overcome some of that with skill. If you have really good timing, a decent level of knowledge of the mechanics, and understand the enemy attack patterns, you can certainly beat the game without getting the best of items, which I think says a lot about the game as a whole. Astral Ascent does have 2-player local co-op, and for the most part, it works quite well. I've spent a vast majority of my time with the game playing with my partner, and it's been a lot of fun discovering all of the little secrets and mechanics of the game together. During runs, you will share currencies and have to split your resources between the two of you, which at times can be a bit of a pain. You do, however, get separate spell and gambit choices from rewards, which is nice. One of my main complaints about the multiplayer is that you can't look at spells and gambits at the same time, which makes the process of visiting the shops and going through floor rewards take twice as long. While this wouldn't be a big deal if you didn't have that many things to choose from throughout a run, that just isn't the case with this game, and all of the time we would spend going through spells and gambits really compounds onto each other and makes the runs last a lot longer than they should. The only other thing that doesn't really work great in my opinion is the shared screen experience. I'm not really a fan of this type of co-op in the first place, and like I mentioned before, visual clarity can be a bit of an issue at times, and so I would occasionally lose track of where I was. This was somewhat solved by turning on the player indicator in the options menu, but it still happens, so I thought I'd mention it if you have similar issues when playing games like this. I do hope that they decide to add online co-op at some point, which would take the experience to a whole new level. I believe it would solve a lot of the issues that I currently have with the co-op experience, not to mention it would mean they would likely sell more as well. Let's quickly talk about what you can expect in terms of run length and replayability. The run length is going to vary quite a lot based on your understanding of the game and how quickly you can make decisions, and also whether or not you are playing multiplayer. I would say on average a run in multiplayer takes about an hour or so if you're taking your time and not really rushing through. On the other hand, you can easily make it through a single player run in about half an hour from start to finish if you have a decent understanding of the game. As far as replayability goes, it's honestly limitless. There is so much variety with 4 playable characters and all of the different spells and items, as well as the destiny mechanic that you unlock later in the game that adds new challenges to your runs. I think you could easily put in 100 hours and still not be bored. I think it would be neat to see them continue to add new characters and maybe add boss modifiers that give the Zodiacs different variants, but overall this is a game that has a lot of variety already and is difficult to master. So if you want to put in the time, there's definitely plenty for you to do. Now for some final thoughts and my verdict. Should you buy, wait for a sale, or leave it on the shelf? I don't think it will come as a surprise that I would absolutely recommend Astral Ascent. It has gorgeous pixel art with charming characters, amazing visual effects, an interesting setting, and gameplay mechanics that never get old. This is hands down my favorite roguelike experience of 2023, and I can't wait to see where the developers continue to go with it. If you're looking for a truly polished game that has quick and snappy platforming mechanics as well as fun and engaging combat, look no further and just buy it. I do hope that you found this video helpful or entertaining. If you did, be sure to hit the like button. It really helps out the channel, and it also helps the game get the exposure that it deserves. If it's your first time here, then welcome, and we would love it if you would join the community by subscribing and joining us over on Discord. A link to that will be down in the description. If you're looking to pick up the game and have any other questions, be sure to let me know down in the comments and I'd be happy to help. That's going to be all for this one. Go out there and kick some Zodiac ass, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.